and good morning, everybody who's watching this. Welcome to another edition of the Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. And in on this episode, we are formally starting what we call Mental Health Mondays, an episode that focuses on mental health issues, and we will be doing this every first Monday of the month with our resident psychiatrist, Dr. TONYANE, and also joining us. Okay, let me just say hi first to the doctor. Hey, Naka, legai. Everything. Thank you so much for waking up. I mean, like you already were up, of course, spanning, but thank you for spending your time with us.
Not a problem, thank you.
Cool. And also joining us will be my co-collaborator, ZANO, or online also known as ZANO Urban. How are you, my brother?
Hey, that right there. I'm good, brother, man. I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to be part of this initiative. I've been seeing it a lot online, and I see the moves, man. It's doing good. It's doing good.
Thank you so much. Thank you both of you guys for doing this. And before we begin, I just want to extend a to the viewer, whoever is watching. I want to extend you guys so that you can be part of the show. We've got a question of the day that we wanna share. Like, if you guys could comment in the or answer in the comment section. And today's question is, oh no, that's a bad question for today's. Today's question is, let me just tell you. Let us know what has gotten you through your depression and anxiety, because today we are focusing on mental health issues. Please do so in the answer in the comment section. We'll share the answers later. We just want to know, what is that one thing, whether it's music, whether it's a friend, whether you got help from someone. What is that one thing that has got you through your depression and anxiety? And I just want to start with my brother ZANO. You have suffered from depression, and I've seen you sharing some stories, some intimate stories on your social media. How would you
Yeah.
explain to someone, like, how would you explain the feeling of being depressed? How does it feel like?
I mean, it's very hard to explain the feeling of depression, except to say you are literally at the bottom of all bottoms, and consistently. So that's how I would describe it. My one's mental state being at the bottom consistently, so which means day in, day out. Some days you have highs, some days you've got lows, some days you've got very high highs, and most days you've got like the most terrible lows, and I never really had depression from when I was young, so I never classified it as clinical depression, but mine came through a series of events, obviously as I was growing up, and more so as I was getting into the workforce of the entertainment industry, so maybe not to get ahead of myself, just to define depression for myself.
Yeah.
It's really just being at the bottom of all bottoms consistently.
Yeah, but what are, if you could point some of the things that you felt at the time when you were going through it, or even looking back, what are some of those things that you would say are triggers or causes of your depression?
uh so for me personally, a lot of my depression obviously came from relationships. A lot of my depression came from work. A big chunk of my depression came from my finances. Starting with my relationships, I went through a divorce, and prior to the divorce, there had been a lot of a lot of drama, a lot of things that really sucked my energy, and really got me to a point where I felt worthless. Really felt like I'm just useless. So I'm just worthless. Went through a divorce, went through the whole motions. Obviously, a divorce is not just signing a piece of paper and then you just move on. There's a lot of emotions that you had invested in your relationship, a lot of time invested in the relationship. I was married for like a good 10 years, you know. So that's the relationships part. And the work part was, getting into an industry where a, a lot of it feels like you're doing a thankless job because you're doing so much for other people, and that's not reciprocated. You don't get that back. You put a lot of energy into the work and you don't get the desired outcomes. You invest all of your finances, you invest all that you have, and you don't get the desired outcomes. So that will also have an effect on my mental health. When it came to finances, I also had an era where, I, for lack of a better way of putting it, and maybe just to put it bluntly, I was broke. I literally lost everything. I lost the car that I had. I lost the house that I had. And it was a very trying time for me. And that, was probably one of the biggest things for me. And if it wasn't for my children, I don't know if I'd be having this conversation with you today.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing stopping me from, doing anything extreme, because then I would think, what's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my kids? Luckily, I managed to claw my way out of that hole, and also to start investing in financial literacy, investing in myself, and managing my finances better, and most importantly, putting myself first, because that for me was one of the biggest things. I'm a I'm a person generally who does not put themselves first. I put other people first, and that always has a way of coming back to me. But I've learned, to embrace myself, to embrace taking care of myself, to embrace putting myself first.
And I love that you shared the story about your children, because you wrote quite an intimate part about the how your kid affected you almost like taking your life. But we'll get into that. I just want to bring in the
Yeah.
doctor in and talk about before we um, just talk about depression first, Doc. Can you please explain to us, the different parts of our brain? Like there's this part of our brain that's so emotional, that deals with emotions, and that kind of overcomes us and overtakes the whole brain. Sometimes, and this instead of being logical, if I may put it like that, in especially in times of difficulty.
Okay, all right. So maybe just to start off, we have the main parts of the brain. Just maybe for simplicity's sake, is that we divide the brain into four parts. So we have mainly our frontal lobe, which is the biggest part of the brain, right? And then we have our temporal lobe, our parietal lobe, and our occipital lobe. So our occipital lobe is right there at the back. If you had to sort of put your hand right there at the back of your head, just where primarily your occipital lobe is. And that is primarily related to controlling our vision. All right. Our temporal lobe, for simplicity's sake, is sort of our CPU and our little memory box. All right. Our parietal lobe then controls sort of our sensory input and our motor input in terms of, holding things, and being able to lift things like that. And our frontal lobe, all right, this is almost like the keyboard of the brain, all right? Now, this is where we do a lot of our input. So in the same part of this brain, this is also where our personality sits. All right, the kind of people that we become, our personality structure, our personality traits. And also the front part of the brain is where, mainly because it's the input, the keyboard, that's where our attention and concentration sits. But it's also where we do our executive functioning. So prioritizing what is important, what's not important. And that's where we also, the brain decides what we call abstract thinking, deciding right from wrong. All right. So how I'll try to always explain it is that in the front part of our brain is our naughty child. So this naughty child that is impulsive, wants whatever they want, and they want to get it whenever they want. All right. But as we grow older, we have our parents, we have society, so we get taught morals, we get taught right from wrong, right? But so that teacher or that strict parent also sits in the front part of your brain, and they're the ones reminding this child not to be naughty. Okay. All right. So sometimes when we're going through stressful situations, it's almost like this good or a strict good cop, all right, goes to sleep, and the naughty child gets out, all right, and comes out to play. So they're quite impulsive and they do whatever they want. So they can become very irrational, all right? So they don't think right from wrong. They just do, like that animal instinct, it does whatever it wants, all right? But these are sort of the big parts of the brain. But inside the brain, what we call the deeper cortical structures, all right? Now, this is where your amygdala, your thalamus is. So these small organs are the ones controlling our emotions and our thought, all right? And our fear response, all right? So they sit sort of almost covered by these big parts of the brain to protect them. And then they're the ones controlling sort of our emotions and our fear, right? And that's what we call the limbic system. So that is the part that gets affected. So the depression, the anxiety affects all part of the brain, all right, all parts of the brain, but it affects that mostly. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. It does indeed. And for me, it's clear that there are people who could be depressed, whether it's from a hereditary issue, like something that you were born into. There's a mental issue, just like you would have somebody who's got cancer, or they are born into a family that's most likely to get cancer. So there are those people, but then there are other people, let's say, who have a healthy state of mind. And can a healthy state of mind change into an unhealthy one? And in basically, I want to ask, can we self-induce depression onto ourselves from having a healthy mind, and now this depression to being depressed?
All right. Okay. So depression, or let me just say all medical conditions, all right? Most medical conditions have what you talked about. What is the nature? So the biological imprint in terms of something that you're born with. So something that's in the genetics that's passed on in the family. All right. But we have a lot of what the environment does on the brain, or does on any medical organ, or on medicine or physiology. So those things primarily, can be, from previous trauma. So that can be physical trauma. So let's say you get a head injury, for instance, all right? That changes, obviously, now what was called a healthy brain, all right? You can get medical illnesses, all right? So let's say an infectious disease like meningitis or encephalitis or HIV in the brain, that then changes what was a healthy brain, all right? Or you can get, for instance, let's talk about cancer, that, it maybe started in the breast or started in the colon, but then it, in stage 4, it metastasizes. So it goes to different parts of the brain. So it affects the brain. So the other things that we also sort of, I wouldn't say self-induce, but sometimes we do without even knowing that we're affecting the brain. And one of the common things is toxins, all right? So some toxins come from the environment, right? For instance, we now genetically modify our food. We now microwave our food. We exist in an environment where there's a lot of pollution. So all of those things have started changing our genetics, what we call epigenetics. And then also there are things that we take, all right, like substances, alcohol, cannabis, other illicit substances, right? So things that we're taking into our bodies that is changing our physiology, right, and making us ill, right? And some of these things are also prescribed medication, like drugs, for instance. And sometimes people don't know, not even aware, like medication for hypertension or medication for this and that can sort of bring on other illnesses as well. So, and then there's also what we call the environmental risk, right? And the environmental risk is things we don't have control over. So if we had to make an example like COVID-19, for instance, it's something that has happened in the environment that has sort of changed our brain chemistry, all right? Crime, all right? Natural disasters. And if you think about countries like the USA, for instance, after 9/11, there was this big spike in terrorism that sparked a lot of anxiety. It's changed their policies, their traveling policies, immigration policies. So there are a lot of other things that can happen in the environment that sort of change our brain chemistry or affect what we call like sort of a healthy brain and make you ill.
I hear you. Doc, if you please just tilt your laptop a bit up, because I
All right.
see it's cutting a bit. No, 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 like up like this.
Up, okay.
Yes, yes. Great, great. Okay. I want to get ZANO in, and brother, I want to get to the story that you shared. You had a moment where you were just about to commit suicide, and
Yeah.
then something happened that pulled you from that. Would you mind sharing
Yeah.
that moment with us?
Yeah, I mean that was December 2017. Actually, it's just very recent, December 2017, 2018. And I one of the biggest things that was happening to me at that moment, was really just moments of reflection, moments of reflecting on, okay, I'm this age, what have I achieved? What have I done to better myself? What have I done to better my family? What have I done to better the situation in my personal space? What have I done that is, or rather, would be a legacy for my children? And there was a lot of that back and forth internal conversations, a lot of that back and forth introspection. And prior to that, I had a very deep, probably 5 months of deep depression that was just consistent. And it didn't matter how much I tried to stop it or how much I tried to deal with it. But it just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And then it just happened that by the time I got to December, to December, actually, I had made peace with myself that this is the last year that I'm alive, or that I would be alive, that this would be the last year that I would breathe the oxygen, that is in the skies. And I took that decision. I remember very well, it was in October. It was on my birthday on the 5th of October. And I just said, okay, this is my last year. And every single thing that I'm going to do between now and then would be sort of like a goodbye, but like subtle goodbyes. I'm not going to go around telling people that I'm going to take my life. I'm not going to go around asking for help, because I had done that previously. And I just made a decision that come December, the kids are not at home. The kids are with their grandmothers. I'm taking the kids to Gogo, and they'll be with the Gogo, and I'll be alone. On that specific day, I managed to get hold of a gun, and I spent the whole day in the morning, prayed in the morning, cleaned the house, just prepared everything, and then the evening came, and had some alcohol, and I chilled, and I had a specific time as well of when I wanted to go. And as fate would have it, the exact moment, it was 22:00, 10 o'clock in the evening, on the 28th of December. And cocked the gun and put the gun to my head and said a little prayer. And as I'm about to pull the trigger, I get a call. And it's a call from a number that I don't know. I ignored the call, took the phone, put it away, but the person kept on persistently calling. So I thought, okay, cool. I mean, it's the last phone call anyway. For nothing to lose, picked up the call, and it's my daughter. And so I asked her, whose number are you calling me from? She says, no, I'm calling you from my aunt's phone. I just wanted to call you. There was no other phone that I could use, so I asked auntie to borrow me phone yake. And I just want to tell you that I miss you. I want to tell you that I love you. I want to tell you that you matter. And I want to tell you that I can't see you when I come back after New Year. That just broke me, man. Like, that just broke me, because I did not think of my kids at that time. Nothing else mattered for me except to take my life. I didn't think of my kids. I didn't think of my kids' future. I didn't think of what's going to happen to the kids when I'm gone. I guess in my head, I made up in my mind that, okay, cool, there's policies, this and that are in place. If I die, those things will pay out. Yes, to traumatic, but the kids will be fine. Which now in hindsight, it's a very selfish way of thinking and viewing things, because you literally do not know what tomorrow holds. And at 22:06, I remember very well, I took the gun and I walked out. I'd lost my car then, so I didn't even have a car. So I just walked out and walked a bit of a distance, wrapped the gun, threw it away, and I went back home. And that's how I ended up not taking my life.
Yo, bro. I mean, I'm glad for once, I know that you didn't take your life, and I mean, mostly as well that your daughter is the one who pulled you from that moment, and I think that, I mean, you and I know you're a spiritual man as well. I believe that things like this don't just happen because of luck or anything. There are definitely greater powers to some of these things. For somebody to, at that exact moment, for someone to pull you from taking your life, it's an amazing thing. And yeah, man, I'm really touched by this story. And I think that I'm assuming that by now, like, your daughter, like, she means more. I mean, she meant more, I'm sure, to you, but I'm sure now, like, every time I'm on, or yeah, this child saved my life. It's amazing.
No, but I had to pull myself. I had to pull myself out of that hole, and I had to find the strength in me, to pull myself out of that hole, because, like, that year, it's 2017. 2017 was a very bad year for me, and 2016 was a very terrible year for me, in all aspects, and through it all, like, my kids, it was just a very funny thing, because every time I feel down, it will always be my kids who come. My daughters, my boys. I've got twin boys, who are 6 years old now. And every time I pray, they barge in and they want to come in and they want to sit and pray with me, or they just want to sit and watch me, you know. And I mean, to this day, I've opened the door, you know, because after that last suicide attempt, I realized that, okay, maybe there's something else that God wants me to do, you know, or a higher power, you know, that wants me to do, you know, on this earth, which is bigger than what I consider my problem, you know. Again, it's fate would have it, it was December 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, everything started building up, you know. Everything I'd lost started coming back. You know, I got another car, got another place, made sure that my kids are secure, the future is secured. They don't go to bed hungry, the education is taken care of, you know. And you know, I'm a present and hands-on dad, you know, in their lives, which is something that I take very big pride in, you know, especially in the era that we live in now, where a lot of our peers they're present with their wallets, but they're not present with, you know, with being physically there and guiding and teaching their children, you know. So yeah, man, my kids meant a lot to me, man. They were my saving grace, you know.
Yeah.
You probably would have been doing a tribute song to me.
Hey, my man, don't say that. I'm just glad that we will do other songs from now on. You know what I mean? But I want to bring in Dr. Tonyane. Doc, how can we use the things that are dear to us in order to help us from, you know, this depressive state of minds?
Look, family support has been documented, you know, in research to be very important in terms of, you know, sort of being a protective factor, all right? Like what ZANO was explaining, that children were a protective factor for him. So something that protected him, you know, in that moment when he wanted to take his life, right? Although, yes, family and social support is very important. However, sometimes can also be the thing that tips you over, you know, to say, you know, because when you start feeling depressed, most people start feeling this inappropriate sense of guilt and these feelings of worthlessness, you know, that then actually children, for instance, become that thing that actually tips them over, that I feel worthless, so I am worthless, they'll be better without me. And certain families, they have what we call high expressed emotions. So where instead of the support makes the person that has the depression or any mental illness feel inadequate, you know, that they're always tiptoeing around the person, they're always super monitoring, they almost make you feel like a baby, and they take away your sense of self. And the sense of independence. So sometimes family support can be negative in that way. And, you know, sometimes that's why it's important, you know, that when you do go through this journey, you know, at some point when you do see your psychologist or your psychiatrist, that be roped in your family to say, how can they support you? Work as well has been shown to be a support structure, but it can also be negative. So everything, you know, can work for and against you. It's about, you know, how do we as a team, meaning, you know, you're treating psychologist or psychiatrist, yourself and the family, how do we bring everybody in? Because even religion can be good, you know, bringing a pastoral care or a reverend or a spiritual healer, if you're not maybe religious, but a spiritual healer. Some people look to tradition and culture, you know, but it's about how to use parts of those that are good and the ones that are negative, how to sort of minimize the negative impact of that. So it's always good to collaborate and bring everybody in. Yeah.
Before I ask you the next question, Doc, I wanna just remind people that they can join the conversation in the comment section. And today's question is, we wanna know from you guys, what has helped you deal with your depression or anxiety? Whether it's music, whether it's a friend, whether it's a spiritual healer or a pastor, who is that person, or what is that thing that has helped you deal with your depression or anxiety? Doc, I want to get into, I mean, this period that we are in, COVID-19 lockdown, a lot of businesses have been affected by it. A lot of artists have been definitely affected by it. We're not gigging, gigs are down. The government, there are talks of gigs only being opened in December or January next year, which naturally is posing a rather difficult threat to the livelihood of artists, especially because of relief funds. There's a lot of misconception and misinformation regarding those funds, who's going to get them, how, and obviously the government can honestly not support everyone and every artist out there. But I want to ask you, how can we best deal with situations like this where financially we are stressed, we are stretched as well, but there's also almost no hope situation for artists?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate that, although we're prioritizing people's health and the people's lives in terms of the COVID-19, that, there are certain casualties to a pandemic. And I think most businesses, not necessarily only the entertainment industry, have suffered quite a bit. But in all this stress, it has also sort of motivated us to think out of the box a little bit. All right. So one of the other ways is that it has sort of forced us to say, okay, the world is moving to a certain direction, which is much more digital, much more visual, and I think as musicians, perhaps it's about sitting in your corner and saying, okay, how can I move perhaps my music into that stream? Yes, and I know, especially with the guys that were underground, they were not on mainstream, they are the ones that are probably going to be the biggest hit, but I suppose you have to prioritize right now, go pros and cons, even if you have to tabulate it down. It's like, what does it mean for me to stay in this position that I'm in? Right? And what are probably the consequences? Should I be moving with the times in terms of trying to move my music a little bit more mainstream, maybe on the visual platform as much as possible? Also, what COVID has also done has also forced us to sort of rebrand ourselves. To say, what is my brand? Who am I? Should I be putting out my brand more out there? I know with certain platforms, if you think about it, in the lockdown, people are home, so people are still consuming music. Maybe they're not consuming music in a physical sense, in terms of the, with going to the clubs and gigs, but people are still consuming music. So maybe perhaps it's about marketing yourself to still, put your music out there. You can still sell it on iTunes and other music platforms. The other thing that I think ZANO referred to was using this time perhaps for financial literacy. Start looking at yourself as more than a musician. Look at yourself as more as a business. Equip yourself during this time in terms of financial literacy. What other ways can you make music? Own your music. And I think that's something that South Africans, traditionally a musician or a DJ was just that guy on the docks. But behind that, you had a lot of people doing things for you. And in those ways, people were losing money. So maybe those are the things that now that you have the time, you can equip yourself with certain skills to see, how can I acquire my own rights? How can I do this a little bit better? And own the brand, own who you are. Look, and I think also what this has taught us is for the future. If we are financially literate, we can now start saving more, start investing in yourself as a brand, putting it out there, saving for the future, saving for your children, saving for yourself. So yes, it's a big knock, but it also has sort of forced us to change, maybe in the worst possible ways. But I think there's one other things. I think when I was busy listening to ZANO talk, was that we often think we're going through this alone, that you're the only one going through this. There are other people that are going through this. So reach out to them, talk to them. Sometimes it's just a matter of talking to somebody to offload, and sometimes when you do offload some of the burdens, something might trigger you, or you can get an idea how to do things a little bit better. And we are also not sure, how long this will go on, and life as we knew it pre-COVID is going to change for everybody, So I suppose it's about rebranding, repackaging yourself, and putting yourself out there a little bit more. And let's think about it, level 3 at some point, or when restaurants open and stuff. Maybe, with the rebranding, maybe you're going to have a concert and people paying like a ticket for a stream for that. So some of this might be free, but some of these things is maybe taking your business also online, where people can make payments, directly to you instead of a third party, to access your music, access like maybe like a mix or something like that, that those platforms where you had to pay like a third party, that you own that. So I suppose, and in the creative industry, music doesn't stop being just like a song. It's so much more. So I think you need to go back into that, producing a little bit of that, and dabble as much as possible.
I think you are you might be in a wrong profession, because you could be you could be an excellent music advisor there. I want to bring in ZANO just to ask, bro, how are you dealing with the effects of COVID-19 and the lockdown as a musician?
So fortunately, before COVID-19 hit us, I had already started to really just make way to go behind the scenes of our entertainment industry. So, because of the whole depression saga, and where I was seeing my life was going, and also because really I just want to leave, a good legacy for my kids to, take and run with. I started investing a lot of my time in, going behind the scenes and doing voiceovers, doing jingles, composing music for jingles, being a session musician for jingles, producing for artists, getting more involved in, because I'm a vocalist, and I think a lot of the respect that comes my way in terms of the work that I do in the music industry, comes from my vocal work, and my vocal arrangement work, so I got a lot into that, writing and vocal arranging for artists. And a lot of my work at the present has moved in-house, moved to the studio, and I service clients from all over the world, clients from, Nekaya, clients from Spain, clients from Italy, clients from Portugal, clients from the UK at the moment. Because I guess COVID-19 is hitting us in different ways. We are classified as part of a third world country, so how it's going to hit us and how it's going to hit our industries is different, And for me, I'm consistently looking for ideas now that can keep me in the house more. Even after COVID-19, I'm looking for ideas that can keep me in the house more, ideas that can help me to make money online, ideas that can help me, to link up with international clients, link up with other producers, record labels, indies and majors, from overseas and locally, because I do feel like a big chunk of my calling within the music space is there. Because I've got a lot of stories to tell. In my brain, I got a lot of lyrics, I got a lot of music, which I know for sure that I can all use for myself. Because other genres and other styles of music are things that I'm not really branded in. You know, I can't really go from where I am now and go to the far left or go to the far right, but I can write for someone who's on the corner, and I can write for someone who's on that corner, and create revenue streams, you know, within the whole performance royalties space, you know, little time, you know, music used for ads, you know. So yes, it has hit us badly, but for me personally, I'm still making my rent. I'm still making my car payments. I'm still making sure that the kids get an education.
Sure.
You know, I know it could be worse. You know, so I'm trying to be grateful as much as I can, and not really to, you know, get stuck
Yeah.
in the mode of complaining about woe is me and things are bad and there's no gigs. You know, and I think Jay, as human beings, whenever there's a pandemic, whenever there's something that challenges humankind, I think that's the point where we rise to the occasion. You know, when our backs are against the wall, it's sink or swim. And I know a lot of people are not gonna go for sinking. A lot of people are gonna swim. A lot of people are gonna find ways, you know, to make this work. A lot of people are finding ways to make this work. You know, a good example is, as much as we're indoors, the advertising industry is still working. There's still ads on TV. There's still ads on the radio. A lot of the castings that you get now, you get castings where if they cast you, they come shoot where you are, in your own space, in your house. You know, voiceovers. If you have a studio, which is what I would advise a lot of producers to do, because people don't know this. If you have a studio at home, you need to be in touch with voiceover studios. You need to be in touch with agents, you know, agents that work with advertising agencies, because a lot of these advertising agencies right now, they are looking for people that have home studios, people that can record voiceovers at home. You know I've got two friends of mine who just last week got two very big contracts for voiceover work with a telecommunications company, and the guys are just recording voiceovers at home. They can be like this on Zoom with the client, and the session can go on just like this. Client is sitting wherever they are. I'm sitting in my studio. I'm recording my voiceover. They hear and they can direct and say, no, don't do it like this, do it like that. You know, so as much as it's all catastrophic in a way, but there's opportunities within the dirt. You know, and I think that is where we must invest our minds more. You know, we should focus more on, okay, sharp, we know gigs are going to be in December, or gigs are going to be next year. So how do we eat? How do we stay alive? You know, not everybody saved up, because COVID-19 came out of nowhere. So not everybody saved up, and I don't have a right as ZANO to go and say, yeah, but why didn't you save? You know, because it's not my place. You know, people are taking care of their parents, people are taking care of their brothers and sisters, people are paying other people's tuitions. You know, people aren't getting paid enough to save. You know, so it's a lot of different factors. You know, but there are opportunities within the dirt.
Definitely, I do agree, man. I'm also one of those people who believe that in moments of adversity like we have now, you know, you could obviously, like, it's not like you've got endless choices, but you could choose. Definitely there is a choice between, are you gonna lie down and not do anything, or can you become creative? Can you invest time in searching for information, searching for what else can you do, what else is this being capable of, on the internet and otherwise. So definitely I am for that. I want to ask you before, ZANO, before we go further, do you smoke weed?
Nah, man, I tried, I tried to smoke weed, but I didn't get high. I was expecting a high, But wait, hold on. But there's this one story, one very funny story. So I was in Holland and I was on tour in Amsterdam. So it was my first time in Amsterdam, and I was doing a 4 month European tour covering Holland, Belgium, and France. So we went to the club, right? And then at the club, so I see this lady at the club just walking around, just carrying a tray of muffins. So I'm thinking, my muffin in the club. That guy, there's no way. And I have a sweet tooth, like people that know me, they know that chocolates, ice cream, cake, muffin, that's me. So I'm in the club, this lady's walking around, and people are dancing, people are smoking weed in public, which was like, like it just blew my mind that you guys smoke weed in public. In a coffee shop, sell coffee and weed. It's a combination. Instead of coffee and cake, it's coffee and weed, And then our people are just taking muffins, and there's a lot of other ladies coming around giving muffins. So I'm like, okay, let me have a muffin. I take a muffin, I eat. Yeah, nice, man. Chocolate, it's moist. It's so I take 2 more, The night goes on, I take 2 more, Then before we leave the club, I take another 2. Little did I know that those are space cookies, which were laced with weed. And that is the only moment I remember where I got high, and maybe I can give you a definition of what high is. But just smoking it like this, I tried once, and I was like, okay, maybe this is not for me, and I chucked it.
I hear you. I asked the question because I think on the next Mental Health Mondays, I want to get us talking, Doc, about the use of substances like weed. But if you could just briefly explain. Well, it's 2 questions, but I want you to try and answer them as quick as possible. The first one is, what effect does weed and a substance like weed have on us? I mean, I'm a musician, and I'm not shy to say I'm a weed smoker. I smoke less than I used to, much less than I used to. But I just want to know, from a medical point of view, what effect does a substance like weed have, and are there any benefits mentally for using this kind of substance?
Okay, so I think maybe let me try to be quick, because you see, like, it's level 3 now. Now people have we can go by alcohol. People are happy. Probably people didn't even log on now because they had macro, So how would you try to explain weed? Let's liken it to alcohol, because I think that's what most people associate it with. Alcohol has medicinal properties, all right? So your medicinal properties is like, right now we're using alcohol in sanitizers, for instance. We're using it in cough mixtures to make the cough better. But it also has what we call a euphoric effect, and there's a reason people drink it, right? It gives you this happiness. It gives you the creativity, and also it's also calming to a certain extent, because when you're stressed, you can feel calm, right? But it also has a toxic effect, which is where it can get addictive and cause mental illness. Weed is the same, all right? So there's a part of it, and actually I don't know how the creator did it, but he actually made receptors in our brain for cannabis, right? But that was for the medical part of the cannabis, all right? So what we call CBD, all right? So that improves your mood, it lessens anxiety, and helps with sleep, all right? But the euphoric effect it changes the chemistry in the brain, all right? So first it gives you this high, and sometimes this high that people explain as a high, sometimes it can be seeing things that are not there, hearing things that are not there, what we call hallucinations, right? But what it can do, the toxic part of it, what we call THC, all right, which is the toxic part of the cannabis. Now, those hallucinations remain even after the substance is withdrawn. So even after you smoked the weed, it's still in your system and still activates the brain to think all of those things are still happening. And that's how it brings on psychosis. And this psychosis can end up resulting in schizophrenia. or it worsens the anxiety, it worsens mood disorders and makes you get addicted. So that is the toxic part of the cannabis. But obviously, whatever you're taking from the ground, your RG, Swazi, whatever the case is, will have both effects. So, but you might be that one out of 10,000 people that this stays on for the rest of your life. And people I like using Snoop and Wiz Khalifa. They can smoke bongs of weed and nothing happens to them. But you might have that genetic vulnerability or a vulnerable brain that you smoke it, just that one joint, and for the rest of your life you have a mental illness that you stay with for the rest of your life, and then it's not worth it.
That's it. That is the scary part of it, I guess. Just if you in a yes or no now, because I have been smoking and I have reduced smoking, and I'm not a heavy smoker at all. Even when I roll a joint, it's not. I hardly finish it. But could you say somebody like me is kind of you okay? You can use it, or rather not.
Unfortunately, in medicine, we never have a yes or no answer. We just give you the facts, and you choose what you do with the facts, and we'll support you with whatever decision you make. So yes, we'll support you if you make the right decision, and yes, we'll support you if you don't choose wisely.
Okay, ZANO, my brother. So churches are opening next week, and in South Africa, when we need to start our own church, and the reason I say this because I know I already have a pastor in you, and if people don't believe if people don't believe, they need.
Hey, bazalwane kuneculo elivanga phakathi kwami. Hallelujah. Leli culo likhuluma ngokuthanda uJesu, ukuthanda inkosi yamakhosi. Hallelujah. Leli culo licula umhlabeleli Nkosi yami, bathi uSister Busi. Hallelujah. God bless his soul. Yes, sir. Ihamba kanje ithi wase walula Nkosi. Ukukuthanda. Jesus, you're so easy to love. Yeah, what's it? Walula Nkosi, ukukuthanda. You're so easy.
Hey, you went for the archives, eh?
I went for the archives, my man. I went for the archives.
Those are the crazy moments we have in between sessions
with Ayanda G.
My guy.
Yeah. And I mean, Doc, you are also welcome to join in. From your medical expertise, we might be able to maximize Sunday collections and so forth. You know what I mean?
No, don't worry. I was also an altar server, so I can join in the church. Don't worry.
You see, no, we're there. So this has been. If I want to say, firstly, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this chat today. I really appreciate your time, but mostly I also appreciate your experiences and your knowledge.
Not a problem, man.
Thank you.
Cool. So guys, this has been another episode of Bread for Soul Convos, and join us again next month on the first Monday of every month with our resident psychiatrist, Dr. TONYANE. And if I may share firstly the doctor's information, it will be appearing on the screen right now. And she's available at the Life Kastenhof Hospital, and the number is there 011-655-5641, or you can email info@aeropsych.co.za to make an appointment with the doctor. And I would like to finish with ZANO's lyrics on a collaboration that we did, All It Takes. It says that all it takes is a bit of faith, all it takes is just one wish, and all it takes is just one more push. And with that, I would like to close the show, guys. Remember to stay creative. Peace out.